Most of my big ideas die in documents with names like New Project, Final, For Real this time. If you opened them, you would not find a masterpiece in progress. You would find a blank page and a blinking cursor. A tiny lighthouse announcing that nothing has happened here yet. I like to tell people I am thinking about writing a book. It sounds so much better than the truth, which is that I am thinking about writing a book. There is a quiet kind of arithmetic hiding inside that gap between what I say I am doing and what I actually do when I sit in front of a screen. That arithmetic is strange, because from far away, everything looks fine. I have ideas, I have plans, I have a whole museum of someday versions of myself. But if you zoom in, the numbers are brutal. The big problem is not that I have not finished the book. The big problem is that I have not really started. Not in a way my future self will be able to count. Not in a way that survives contact with a calendar. This video is about that weird arithmetic of small beginnings, about why one ugly sentence can matter more than an entire fantasy of future work, and about what actually changes the moment you stop being a person who has not started yet. Let us start with the way most of us measure our lives. We measure by position. Position asks a simple question. How far am I from the thing I want? How far am I from the book? From the business? From the new job? From the version of me who goes to bed on purpose? I zoom out and put a pin in where I am and another pin in where I wish I was. The distance between those pins looks ridiculous. So I do what feels emotionally reasonable. I wait. I wait for a quieter season. I wait for motivation. I wait for the mythical future day where I wake up and feel like the sort of person who easily closes that distance. The problem is that this way of measuring skips the only part that actually moves. There is another question that is much less flattering and much more honest. Instead of asking, "How far along am I can ask, "Am I in motion at all?" Trajectory instead of position. One ugly sentence has more in common with a finished book than another week of talking about working on my book. One slow mile with bad music and a side stitch has more in common with a marathon than another night of scrolling through running videos. If you look at the distance on a map, not much has changed, but if you look at the direction, everything has. Position flatters me. Trajectory exposes me. There is a second piece of this that hurts even more. Doing nothing is also a trajectory. We like to think of inaction as neutral, as if by not starting, we are at least not making things worse. But doing nothing quietly points your future back toward your present. Hold that line for long enough, and someday begins to look exactly like right now, just with more tired eyes. I have treated someday like a savings account, a place where I store all the things I will definitely do later. The book, the habit, the business, the honest conversation. But someday behaves less like a savings account and more like a storage unit. I keep entire alternate lives there, packed into neat mental boxes. The version of me who did write the book. The version who did start the company. The version who did not abandon the difficult thing halfway through. Nothing bad ever happens to those people. They never get rejected. They never publish anything embarrassing. They also never exist. The rent for that storage unit is not money. It is a kind of low-level shame, a constant quiet sense that I am slightly behind on my own life. Starting is expensive because it spends all of that stored potential at once. The moment I actually begin, I lose the fantasy that I could be brilliant if I really tried. Now I have to look at something real instead. Not a dream version of the book, just 5 awkward sentences and a confused outline. Not a sleek business, just one clumsy landing page with no visitors. Not a heroic fitness story, just one short run that ends with me gasping near a stop sign. On paper, that looks like a downgrade. In reality, it is the first time the math starts working in my favor, because for the first time, I have evidence. Evidence is not glamorous. It is just something that happened in the real world, out here where things can be measured and improved. You can add to evidence. You cannot add to a fantasy. You can only decorate it. There is also a strange trick in the way our minds work that starts to help us the moment we cross that thin line between planning and doing. When you begin a task, even a small piece of it, your brain creates a kind of tension around finishing it. Leave a message half typed, or a paragraph half written, or a task half done, and it hums in the background like a refrigerator. The blank page is oddly peaceful. It does not accuse you, it just waits. The moment I type a bad first sentence, everything changes. So here's the question I am asking you, and also asking myself, as kindly and as bluntly as I can. What is the smallest concrete thing you could do today that would make it dishonest to say, I have not started? Not, what would impress your friends? Not, what would prove that you are serious now? Just, what tiny action would force you to retire the sentence, I have not begun? Maybe it is one ugly sentence in a new document. Maybe it is 1 mile walked while you feel ridiculous. Maybe it is one short note sent to someone you have been meaning to reach out to for years. Whatever that thing is, it is probably not dramatic enough to feel like the beginning of a new life. But it will tilt your trajectory, even if only by a few quiet degrees. And given enough time, a few quiet degrees is the difference between a life that stays in storage and a life that actually happened.